I'm gonna pull the whole thing down. I'm gonna bring the whole fucking diseased, corrupt temple down on your head. It's gonna be biblical.
Hello and welcome to Patriots Across the Pond with Stu and ELISA, and you are here today on Monday for our Respect Show, and we are so honored today with our guest, CATHY O'Brien, and of course, Mark is here with us today, coming back for one of our Respect shows. How is everyone today?
I'm great.
Great to be here.
Happy to be here. Very.
Yeah. So happy to have you guys. So I would love to just read a little bit of your background, CATHY. I'm sure many of our followers are very familiar with you and your story, but there's a lot of newcomers every day, and we want to make sure that they know exactly who we have on here. CATHY O'Brien, born in 1957 in Muskegon, Michigan, is a nationally and internationally recognized U.S. government whistleblower on the subject of MKUltra, mind control, and healing from it. Knowledge is our defense against mind control, and CATHY's experience empowers her insights into the far-reaching effects of mind control on society today and what you can do to reclaim, protect, and expand free thought. In 1995, when the U.S. National Security Act was invoked on her testimony for U.S. Congressional Permanent Select Committees on Intelligent Oversight, that testimony was released through her book, Transformation of America, written with Mark Phillips. As detailed in Trans, CATHY became a candidate for MKUltra mind control due to a dissociative disorder developed from incest. CATHY's pedophile father, Earl O'Brien, sold her into MKUltra due to his illicit connections into a local Michigan mafia child pornography ring sanctioned by local politician Gerald Ford. As Ford's political career escalated to heading the Warren Commission that covered up the Kennedy assassination and to becoming president of the United States, CATHY's victimization rose proportionately. Through systematic torture and well-documented NASA military mind control programming, CATHY was forced to do the unthinkable and participate in CIA Black Ops and White House Pentagon-level operations during the Reagan-Bush administration. In 1988, MI8 intelligence insider Mark Phillips rescued Cathy and her then 8-year-old daughter, Kelly. Using methods gained in mind sciences, he taught Cathy how to remember what she'd been programmed to forget and reclaim control over her mind and life. These methods are detailed in both Access Denied for Reasons of National Security and PTSD, Time to Heal. Together for 30 years, Mark and Cathy would speak out globally to raise awareness on human trafficking and the corruption permeating the highest levels of government. Mark's untimely passing in 2017 would lead Cathy into the next chapter of her journey in order to cope with the loss of her hero and soulmate. Cathy reapplied methods in PTSD, Time to Heal, and consciously chose to complete their shared life's purpose by asserting her strength of spirit and raising awareness on truth that makes us free. Wow.
Wow.
Welcome.
Welcome, Cathy.
Thank you. I haven't heard that bio in a while. That's yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very concise description of a tremendously huge experience, right?
It is. And I've been speaking out for over 35 years on MK Ultra mind control and healing from it. And my 1995 testimony for Congress, Transformation of America, was censored under national security. And that secrecy is what is so important to the perpetrators who are ushering in a slave society agenda that's intended to align us with artificial intelligence, make us compliant, and is deliberately undermining our humanity in order to dumb us down that far, because we've got the victory within us. We've got the wisdom that comes with soul expression and the strength of the human spirit, and wisdom outthinks criminal minds every time, outthinks artificial intelligence every time, because that's just flat linear thinking. We've got it all, but being deep in the swamp among those perpetrators gave me a lot of insight into what the plan is for humanity, how much of that has fallen apart as humanity wakes up. This great awakening is real. And exactly what we can do to not only take back the sovereignty of our lives, but to take back the sovereignty of our nation. Because we're at a point now where the CIA, MK Ultra mind control has infiltrated a whole lot of our government, our agencies, and we have a lot to clean up.
Cathy, I just want to underscore something you said. When people sometimes hear a survivor like yourself or others that have been so brave to come forth with their stories, they kind of have like a little bit of a distance, like, wow, with all the empathy they could have, that's terrible because that happened there. But what you just said is so important, that this is a systematic thing of mind control that, as you said, has infiltrated. So we are all in some way being controlled, unless you understand that that's what's going on and you're able to have that awareness allow you to not be susceptible. So this affects everyone, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
It does. Knowledge is our defense against mind control. And it's why I'm particularly excited about the MK Ultra hearings that came out on June 30th. Representative Luna has done an amazing job, and Representative Mace and the others on that panel, of laying a groundwork and a foundation. There's a lot of survivors. There's a lot of people that are saying, oh, they didn't even begin to touch that. No, they didn't begin to touch it. They've got to lay the groundwork first, because there are a lot of people who are just waking up. They're just now realizing the pervasiveness of mind control and realizing that it's going to take a lot for us to effectively take back our lives. And that begins with knowledge. This knowledge has been deliberately suppressed for generations, and it's so important that this truth comes out. So I'm in high hopes at this point that these MK Ultra hearings will continue and that the survivors themselves will be heard. I know of numerous survivors. When Mark Phillips rescued my daughter and me out of the Washington, D.C. swamp in 1988, there were very few survivors of MK Ultra on the level I was used that survived. And now there's so many of them that have healed from within themselves, like I did, using the methods Mark taught me, and reclaimed their self-control and inner peace enough to be able to speak out. So the testimonies that could be brought forward can be very comprehensive, not overwhelming in the trauma aspect of it, as much as the insight gained into the far-reaching effects of mind control, so that we can all effectively protect our children going forward. There's nothing more important than that.
Oh, exactly that. And I just want to add to that, you know, a lot of people might think MK Ultra to be far-fetched, but even down to the basic level, everyone who watches the television is under some form of MK Ultra. You know, the subliminal messaging and all these things. So obviously I want to get you to, you know, just really go into your story and stuff. But we just had a quick chat before we came on, and you were meant to come on with us a little while ago with Mark Messina, but you had a dreadful tornado whip through, didn't you, spinning in the opposite direction. So can you just tell us how you're getting on from that? Because you had a beautiful story about the wildlife.
Oh yeah. The wildlife it's so resilient, and it definitely is encouraging. I was working on requested MK Ultra documents. I was attempting to condense 30 years of White House Pentagon level MK Ultra mind control, and 35 years of retaliation from speaking out against people like the Clintons and the Bushes and Senator Byrd and other high-level global perpetrators in this. I was compiling it into bullet points, if you can imagine, and making it comprehensive upon request, and additionally adding the information that was originally censored from being in Transformation of America, which is a crucial piece of the puzzle. So that was important information. I was in the middle of compiling. I was about 5 hours into it when, out of the blue, and I mean literally out of the blue, a tornado slammed into my home, and it tore down over 38 trees. They piled onto my house from all four sides, which is really odd in itself. My daughter Kelly was standing outside when it came out of the blue, and she saw it just drop right in front of the house and spin in opposite rotation. There were no tornado warnings. There was no pressure change that usually comes with tornadoes. There's nothing. There's not even a path. There's no one else was affected. The people at the end of my driveway didn't even have a leaf blown in their yard. Only my house was slammed. The devastation was extreme. And when we realized, okay, we're okay, the house is still standing despite the devastation, Kelly and I really needed to rebalance. So we do what we always do when we need to rebalance, is get out in nature, because nature is our nature, and it teaches us so much. We took a walk and saw this Cherokee sacred land that we live on. All the wildlife were all coming back already, and it seemed like nothing had been adversely affected. The birds were coming back into the trees, laying on the ground, but nevertheless, they still came back into the trees. The squirrels were jumping all over. We went to the pond, and the geese were on it, teaching their new babies how to swim, these little tiny itty-bitty fluffs out there. How nothing blew. I mean, they were all okay. And it's like, okay, we can make it. We can get through this. And it was so helpful to us in that moment. And then neighbors came to start to dig us out, and just working round the clock to make a path so the electric company could get in and hook up our electricity. Like 3 days later, they were able to get in. So the kindness of people. And then, the friends set up a GoFundMe, and people started donating. They weren't even not just donating. They were being so kind and loving and supportive, and the prayers and the kindness, the outpouring of love. That's That's what makes all the difference in the world. And it's such a prime example for the times that we're in right now, because people helping people is what's going to save this world. We can't rely on government agencies. We can't rely on homeowners insurance. I can tell you that much. We can only just rely on each other. And this is such a beautiful time for humanity to come together. So in a bigger picture, you know, pulling back from the devastation of that moment to a bigger picture, it was like, life is still filled with miracles. And even if people look closely at the GoFundMe picture where all the trees are piled on the house, there's this little tiny red dot. And if you zoom in on it, you'll see it's a hummingbird feeder. You know, like, how did the hummingbird feeder still stand? And the hummingbird's right there. You know, it just, yeah, nature has so much to teach us. Animals bring us back to our senses. You know, as we've been talking here, I noticed, Elisa, your cat was visiting us, and that's just like, okay, great vibes, brings everything into perfect focus. Animals have so much to teach us. They can bring us back to our senses. And even in the most dramatic moments, that's when we gravitate to that, you know, get our feet in the dirt, feel the sun on our skin, pet our animals, listen to nature, and we're all okay. We make it through this.
Yeah.
Good.
I think that bird feeder was also, in my opinion, a sign from God that everything's
gonna be
okay.
all right. Yeah. And I haven't got your GoFundMe here, but if you go on Cathy's website, you can donate there, trance-formation.com, donate. So that would be wonderful if anyone can help out. And so just before we go into your story, Mark, do you want to say a few little words when you're sitting in the corner?
I've said a bunch of times that I believe that God's hand has been involved in this throughout. There's just absolutely no doubt, just because of the people that I've met and people I've dealt with, and Cathy is one of them. And when you look at Cathy's story and you look at everything that's gone on, one of the phrases that came out of World War II was man's inhumanity toward man. And unfortunately, that's something that's gone on since the beginning of time. What's the cure to it? We're the cure to it. You know, man did this. Man can end it.
Yeah.
We live in a country called the United States of America. And because I love wordplay, one of the things that I found over the years is we are the untied states of America. You know, there's nothing united about us. That's because of things like MK Ultra. That's because we have organizations within our government that go out of their way to confuse us, to enslave us, to brainwash us, and to put us into situations whereby we have to sit and talk about this. And why do we have to sit and talk about this? Because you have so many people who are, I'll put it that way, dead from the neck up.
Yeah.
They just don't see it. They don't get it. They don't understand it. And they, more than anything, which is the problem, they don't want to accept it.
Yeah.
And we have to. We have to become united in our battle against the powers that were, and not ever, ever, ever allow them again to be the powers that be. Because we, the people, allowed ourselves to be put in that situation. Nobody can do anything to you that you don't, excuse me, that you don't allow them to do. We, with malice of forethought, have allowed this to happen. And we, with malice of forethought, have to stop it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, when I deal with people like Cathy and others, it's, look, Cathy's the poster child, you know, and this is where we are, and we've got to stop what's going on. That's why I started doing what I did on the show, and that's why I'm thrilled to no end that you guys continue doing, because the word not only has to be put out, and I've seen comments over the time, you know, of enough already, enough. No, it's never enough. It's never enough, because once it's enough, it comes back.
Mhm.
Yes, exactly.
So true. You know, this may sound kind of trite, but I want people to understand how we talked about before that, before Cathy gets into her story, the MK Ultra happens all over. I was watching a movie the other night from 1946, one of my favorites, Academy Award winner, The Best Years of Our Lives, if anybody's ever seen it, about these three men who come back from war and how they readjust to their lives. But it was very interesting because I may not have noticed this, 10, 15 years ago. What happened when all the men went off to war? They rallied the women to work and join the workforce, and right? And now the men are all back and they're displaced. So what do they have to do? They got to get the women out of the workforce back in the home. And they did it, it was a little extreme but they had this one guy whose wife had been working and supporting herself and all this kind of stuff. And now he wanted her to stay home and he wanted to be the breadwinner. And of course, they vilified her. They gave her all these other, she was floozy and she was, wasn't kind and all these other things. But right there, they're telling people that if you want to be a good woman, you need to stop working and you need to, right? And it's little things like that. They also had little comments about the war. Some guy says how a lot of these guys were duped fighting a war that they shouldn't have had to fight. And of course they all rally because, you've got this guy who comes back with no hands. And my point is, if you start to watch things with a discerning eye, it doesn't mean you can't be entertained and you can't, but be discerning about what those messages are so you don't, buy them hook, like line and sinker, like so many did with the COVID MK Ultraing. So I'll leave it at that.
Don't think they didn't play off of that. If you look at that, you look at A League of Their Own. And in A League of Their Own, that's one of the soliloquies that goes on about, what are we supposed to do with the boys when they come home from war? Put them in the kitchen and this and that and the other. But then they capitalized off of that in the 60s and the 70s with the women's lib movement.
Yes.
Not just to get them out of the house, but to make sure, well, it's important that they be out of the house. We don't need housewives. We don't need mothers. We need the workforce. And that was the beginning of the destruction of the family unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been conditioned for generations with all of that. That's why it's so important to get the knowledge out there. I completed my MK Ultra documents I was working on, and they are submitted. Nothing's going to slow me down or stop my voice because this is such a pivotal time in humanity's history. This great awakening is a mental and spiritual evolution. And Mark, I love wordplay too. You know I do. And when I hear United States, I think of US, us. It's up to us. It's up to we the people. That's what our Constitution says. And we have been given back our power. President Trump said he was given power back to the people. Most people don't even know what that means, and they're like, oh, well, what do we do? We're waiting on government to do this for me or do that for me or this agency. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Those agencies have been so corrupted. They're the ones doing it to us. This is our time to take self-responsibility, remember who we are and why we're here, and start making a difference in our own communities. That local action has national impact. National impact has global impact. This is just an amazing time to be alive, bringing a message of the reality of MK Ultra mind control to light. And above all, its far-reaching effects. We talked about that. Kennedy had said he wanted to take the CIA and splinter them into 1,000 pieces. And we're at a point now where the CIA has infiltrated so many other agencies and everything else that we're going to have to scatter a whole bunch of them into 1,000 pieces, including and above all CPS, Child Protective Services, which has only perpetuated the child sex trafficking and the human trafficking pipeline. So, we've got a long ways to go to clean things up at this point. But above all, and first of all, we have to realize that the swamp does not drain from the top down by one man at the top. It is up to all of us to do our part and drain it from the bottom up.
Yeah.
That's how it actually drains. But we need to get the roots out of the way, because those roots of corruption, those far-reaching roots that were planted so long ago, are clogging the swamp drain. And that's going to take all of us educating ourselves, arming ourselves with truth, and understanding the pervasiveness of MK Ultra mind control, and also the multi-generational effect that has gone on now.
Yeah. I just want to add as well to what Mark and Elisa were saying, that when you change the way that you look at things, the things you look at change. And that is one of the best lines you'll hear over the last 10 years. So it's all about your discernment and seeing things in a different way.
Well, one of the simple things I've been trying to explain to people for the longest time, and it's part of the awakening. It's part of waking up. You take your average American working anywhere, and you ask them very, very simply, do you make your own salary? Do you make your own benefits? Make your own retirement package? And 99% of them will go, no. But that's right, they do. Why do they? Because we allow it. Yeah. Very, very simple. And I've said this, people are going to get sick of it, but I've said this ad nauseum. We are the CEOs, CFOs, and COOs of this corporation that's been in existence for 250 years. And we have allowed our employees to bankrupt our company. Not just financially, but morally. Only we can stop it.
Yeah. We the people, mass non-compliance is the first step. Just if we all stood up together and said, no, we're not doing that anymore,
they're done.
It'll almost crumble overnight.
And that's, I think, what they're waiting for. That's what I think
I agree.
White hats are waiting for.
So do I.
And they've given us, oh, I'm sorry, Kathy.
Go ahead.
And I think they've given us those small opportunities like Budweiser, like they're trying to show us, look what happens when you boycott something seemingly unimportant to your life, beer. This is what you could do. Look when you boycott a store. Look when, do it to your government, do it to the agencies that are, keeping you a prisoner. And people just, they're not getting, some of us are doing that, but it's not to the numbers at this point that needs to really make that impact. So that's why we have shows like this to just keep inspiring people to, embrace their own power.
Well,
yeah,
ridiculous can they, I'm sorry, Kath, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, how much more ridiculous and in your face can they possibly make it than what you've seen recently in the primaries?
Right.
Okay. They put all of these lunatics, and, I don't want to go fall into communists and this, these lunatics that make 0 sense in all these big cities, and they're getting, nominated as the candidate for the other party. Okay. And I've said for decades, okay, the Democrat Party, the Republican Party are two parties none of us are invited to. But above and beyond that, the simple fact is they're making it a joke. You got a guy from Maine. People from Maine might be liberal by generation, but they're not stupid people. And they got a guy with a Nazi tattoo and the whole bit who's running not even for Congress, for Senate. And then it finally takes a whole bunch of sexual conduct, allegations out there to bring it to the tipping point. Look at what's going on in New York City with I Madman.
I can tell you, I have an aunt who I've tried to red pill her so many times. Well, she does get mad and doesn't talk to me for like months at a time. So I can't do it anymore. But she's like, look what he just did, this SOB. He's telling everyone that Italians had no part of building this city, and
that's the thing they pick on. That's the simple thing they pick on to get that the people get enraged about. You
And
get
what do
into
they,
there.
but what do they really do? They just complain. They just scream at their other friends and, about it. So whatever,
And
but
yet
they're
in
just being
reality,
heard.
is your aunt in the city?
Oh, yes, in Queens.
Okay. Then she's one of the people that allegedly, my favorite word in the English language, that allegedly put him in office.
Yeah. See, the thing is, every one of these new psyops comes out, whichever side it's done by, is waking up another collective of people. Yeah. It's pissing someone else off, which is, it doesn't matter if the white hats are doing this or the dark side's doing it to further their agenda. It is pissing someone else off to come and join the party, we the people. Right.
Exactly. We've been conditioned for generations to look outside ourselves to authority. We look to big government, big pharma, big tech, big cult religion to tell us how to live our lives. And that has been deliberately structured. We don't go within and remember who we are and why we're here. Align with the divine, live our life's purpose. It's taken us so far from that. We're living in this shallow, moment to moment snap judgment aspect of things, and the media is just fueling it all. When we understand that we've been deliberately conditioned for generations, we can break that genetic chain and open our eyes. And Alyssa, what you just described, you're breaking the genetic chain, and because you are breaking that chain, your mother's starting to see, and so it goes. And that's how we do it all around us. We can't wake up for other people, but we can shine our light so bright that it does show them the path forward. And it's real helpful for them to understand that this has been very deliberately planned and structured now for generations. When MK Ultra came into the U.S. through Project Paperclip, we imported the Nazi and fascist scientists into the U.S. in the wake of World War II. With them came the formula for mind control, because knowledge is our defense against it, and it's our birthright to knowledge to have defense against it. That information was all buried under national security, which is why the National Security Act was born, so that these crimes against humanity, this dumbing us down, this undermining of our life's purpose and our brilliant brains, has gone on for so very, very long, because of the secrecy that has been imposed. And the CIA was formed the same year to carry it all out. So in that formula for mind control, the formula is the same, whether it's of an individual, a nation, a classroom, a church, a military, or the world. Trauma is the basis of it. It was found in Himmler research. There's no trauma more horrific on the human mind than sexual abuse of a child prior to age 5 while the brain is still forming. It causes neuron pathways in the brain to shut down, heightening suggestibility, leaving the subconscious wide open to being easily led and manipulated. And that's what mind control is about. It shuts down our brilliant brains. The other components are sleep, food, and water deprivation. And it gets easy to understand why we're working 9 to 5, 5 to 9 to put food on the table that's been biologically engineered, genetically engineered and altered to starve our brains. And why our water is tainted with fluoride and who knows what other chemicals, so this is all shutting down neuron pathways in our brain, and we need our brains firing brilliantly. The other thing in the sub-project that I was born into was Project Monarch, which is a multi-generational sub-project of MK Ultra, because it had been found in Himmler research that after 3 generations, any knowledge base, abuse base, or belief system becomes autogenic in the brain. It's genetically passed down. And after 3 generations, that's just the way we're born with that kind of knowledge. So if we've been conditioned into compliance for 3 generations, we're born compliant, and it makes it harder to break that genetic chain. Nevertheless, soul is stronger than genetics. So, we have the saving grace within us, but it still has had its effect on humanity. And we're at a point now where we're seeing we've got to break that genetic chain. I think one of the greatest examples of how that genetic chain has worked is that the pedophile agenda has been put in place for a long time. You look at Project Paperclip, and Disney was brought in with Project Paperclip and friends with Warner von Braun. You think, what does NASA have to do with child's cartoons? Mind control. Above all, the pedophile agenda. So looking back at the first Disney cartoons, they were already subliminally embedded to promote pedophilia. They had their trauma, and then the promotion of the subliminal promotion of pedophilia, conditioning the generations to accept it. And then it became more and more pervasive, more forward, and infiltrating other aspects of society, especially and including the education system. And all of a sudden, the pedophile agenda has reached this proportion. When we understand the pedophile agenda is a mind control agenda, we see why we were conditioned to this. In my lifetime, child sex trafficking has become one of the most lucrative businesses on the planet. That's because the sexualization of children is a result of MK Ultra mind control. Child sex trafficking is the funding mechanism of MK Ultra mind control. And the pedophile blackmail ops are what keep so many people compromised and complying with it, if they're not already complying because they've been genetically conditioned for generations to accept it. So, this great awakening has a long way to go. We've got to overcome media's repetitive narrative that this is a sexual preference. It is not. It's a control mechanism intended to dumb us all down and make humanity compliant for generations to come. So when we start seeing this generational aspect and the very deliberate application of MK Ultra on society, it makes it easier to understand why those around us may be giving in to the media's repetitive narrative, that they may be buying into the neurolinguistic programming, the political rhetoric of these so-called politicians that are destined to be placed in positions of authority, just as they have been ever since the inception of the electronic voting machines in the wake of the Kennedy assassination. It's easier to see how people are falling into these traps, and ultimately it gives us more of a compassion and a patience for them, but at the same time accelerate our own effectiveness in shining the light so bright that we can stop child sex trafficking once and for all. The children can't wait. They can't wait any longer. It's up to us.
Yeah, totally agree.
And look at exactly what Cathy just said. My business, and strangely enough, my employer for the last 25 years that I worked, being Disney, since they bought ABC, is probably the strongest arm of the cabal, because how else do you reach masses and masses and masses of people at one time and brainwash them? And you go back to when we were kids, what did our parents call TV? They called it the boob tube, the idiot box. Yeah. And it's a tool of brainwashing. And they put the crap out there and people fall into it. If you look at the the fall of the family structure, and you look at how they got into these quote unquote reality shows, where you got into the terms of baby mamas and everybody just having kids willy-nilly and never having a father for it. You've got people who are so popularized that started out with what? A sex tape? Mm-hmm. And these are the things that they've brainwashed people and made the people more and more accustomed to, so that that's what they sought out. Yeah. And that's what got sponsored. But the big part of it is, when people think of the media, what do they think of? They think of television. Media is a Latin word. A is the plural of it. Media. TV is a medium, singular. one of many, because now most people get their entertainment, et cetera, from this little piece of crap.
Mhm.
And what do? They go online and you have an endless source of everything that you want to watch, you want to quote unquote learn from, somewhat entertain, and that includes all forms of pornography. That all of the sites that a lot of our kids would frequent have it on it. So you may think, oh yeah, Instagram's cool for the kids, or TikTok, or this, that, or the, and you get on there and you look, you be a good parent and you look, they can get into absolutely everything. And the problem is you don't know who's on the other side.
Yeah. You know, Jim Brewer, the comedian, one of his his comedy routines is about in the 80s, right? How do you get to this other generation, right? The teenagers who are out playing ball and riding their bikes and, oh, MTV. And he does a whole thing on how, right, not only are you getting them back into the house in front of the box, but all the music, right? What kind of messages are coming through that. So it's a matter of people, taking that 40,000-foot view and starting to realize where's my mind control coming from, and how do I kind of fight back against that and be aware. You're not going to take these systems down, but if you're aware, you're not going to be able to be controlled.
Yeah.
Yeah, the music is so strong because they found that the harmonic vibration, the frequency, they could match a frequency of the brain and program information in or trigger it or anything else. So the CIA took over the music real strong. And Disney, here we go again. Disney was a very serious MK Ultra mind control programming epicenter, and the underworld of Disney World was the DARPA programming center and very strong mind control. And then we watch how people like Britney Spears and Michael Jackson and all would came out of Disney, and they rose to the superstardom because they were given the harmonic frequencies. They were deliberately led as Pied Pipers. Britney Spears, so early on was a little Pied Piper into dropping the age on sexualization lower and lower because she was just a little child when she was so sexual. So Disney had their hand in that musical aspect too, the programming that went on there. We got to understand how much MK Ultra has infiltrated our society now that it's got that technological harmonic aspect to it. It comes through the not only the television but computerization, cell phones, video games. It's all around us, these frequencies. The frequencies are even used in like in harp, weather manipulation, and everything else. I mean, there's so many ways that these frequencies end up being part of MK Ultra manipulation. So understanding our own mind-brain function is really key to being able to overcome this, because when we understand that frequency, we choose carefully what we allow to go into our heads. What music are we listening to? What are we allowing the children to see? What are the subliminals going on in that cartoon? We start looking at things in a different light and realizing the importance of keeping a better balance in our own lives by shutting off all devices, getting out in nature, regrounding, getting our feet in the earth, listening to nature, thinking, talking to each other, eye to eye, heart to heart, soul to soul, instead of sitting there twiddling our thumbs with a snap judgment back and forth, LOL. We've got to get back to the grounding into the reality of who we are. When we do that, we find we have the strength and the capability to choose what we respond to, whether it's a frequency or otherwise, because we don't need to allow that to take over. Artificial, that's why I don't fear artificial intelligence. We have the ability, the wisdom to outthink it, the wisdom to raise our own vibration and choose to live the love we are. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. It's the highest frequency, the highest vibration. It's our victory, it's the win. And we can exude that with the strength of the human spirit and ultimately navigate our way through whatever level of technological harassment or anything else that we're being exposed to. We still have the ability for self-control, inner peace, and living our life's purpose.
Yeah.
We respond to frequency. We are frequency. We are the body electric. Or you know that. That's why a lot of times when you go into sleep, you're really tired, all of a sudden your body just jumps.
Yeah.
Discharging that electricity, that excess electricity that's in your body. And that's why, you know, part of this movement has been about what resonates with you. When you look at frequency, there's really only two types of frequency. There are resonance and dissonance. The two types of frequencies. And when you listen to something that is resonant and it resonates with you, it's nice and easy and it's calm. When something is a dissonant frequency and it doesn't, it rubs you the wrong way. You feel it. You feel the hairs on the back of your neck start to stand up. That's dissonance. We all feel it. We all know it. But people are so programmed, again, to listen to what their friends are listening to or listening to what's popular, et cetera, we lose track of the balance of right and wrong and what really feels right, what we know in our hearts resonates with us and works. And that's all part of the plan.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when it actually becomes cool to be awake and start sharing this information, when that flips, it's going to be like a tidal wave of people coming across. But it's people need to find the courage to step over that line while it's uncooled, like we all have, you know, to get this message out and do what we're doing while we're not being backed up by many people behind us. But in doing so, you become more at peace, you become wiser, your discernment gets better in all this anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think
Absolutely.
to Cathy's point about the highest frequency, I mean, I think when people like all these books, when you're preparing to have a child and all this, it's just hitting me because of what we know now about the love frequency. It really should be like, what am I supposed to do with this kid? I think the first thing you need to do is teach this kid to say I love you to itself, because that's what they've pulled out. They've made us hate ourselves and think there's something wrong with us and we're sinners. I can't even go to a funeral, to be honest with you, and sit through a Catholic mass about how we're sinners. And I'm like, seriously, this is what they've been telling us, you know, in all forms of religion and cult and messages in what we watch, right? If you had children who were able to look in the mirror and tell themselves daily, I love you, I think society would change like that in, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. And when I was healing from my, after Mark lifted me and my daughter out of the Washington, D.C. human trafficking swamp in 1988, he was working the highest levels of intelligence, mind sciences to preserve the sanctity of free thought. And he was so disgusted with how far mind control had reached into society and the blackmail ops. And when he saw little children being taken in and out of the White House, he decided to do something about it. And I'm so fortunate that he chose to lift us out of that swamp. Mark handed me keys to my own mind. He found our our birthright information on mind-brain function, our defense against mind control, our ability to heal from within ourselves with the resiliency of body, mind, and spirit we've been blessed with all along. He found that information had been buried under national security. As soon as the National Security Act was formed, they wanted people to forget. After so many generations, people did forget that we have these capabilities and the resiliency and the healing from within. We think we have to go to mental health. Look at mental health was set up by MK Ultra doctors, Ewan Cameron, Jolly West, Margaret Singer. All these had a huge influence on the mental health community. Every one of them notoriously active in MK Ultra mind control. And so they were making sure that people didn't heal from the trauma so they could perpetuate a victim mentality and a heightened suggestibility and a compliance. They didn't want people to heal. So Mark found this information and he handed me those keys to my own mind, reminded me, and I was able to heal from within. And because I was safe, my neuron pathways in my brain opened up. I was remembering, I was writing out memory the way that he taught me. And I couldn't deal with what I had been forced to do under mind control. I couldn't deal with it. And people were saying to me, you need to love yourself, and it's like, they have no idea what, all the daily affirmations in the world weren't going to make me love myself. And in the meantime, I had fallen so in love with Mark. He was so handsome. He was everything. We were safe. I mean, he was everything. He was a great chef on top of everything. And he wouldn't have anything to do with me. He said, you have to heal first in order to have something to give in a relationship. You have to know who you are. You've got to find that within you. I couldn't figure that out from outside myself because I had been bombarded with that the first 30 years of my life, with everybody telling, programming what they wanted me to be. So I went to the base core energy of my being and looked for who I am on the deepest of levels and found that energy is love. So it's like, okay, I'll live the love I am. That was a whole lot easier than trying to love myself, in that regard. But instead, I just took it from the energetic standpoint of living the love that I am, that strength of the human spirit, that infinite power of love. And that allowed for me to be able to drive my brain into healing faster and better, which was great because I really wanted to hurry up and heal so that Mark and I could fall in love, which we did and had the best relationship. But I had to find that. So ultimately, sometimes when people are looking to love themselves, they're doing it according to what other people tell them should be that rule. You can only love yourself when you realize that you're a sinner, or you can only love yourself when, instead we're designed that way. It's who we are. And when we all live the love we are, that's where we naturally unite. That's where we're so empowered. That's where we're going to be able to make all the difference in the world. This is such a powerful force. This is exactly what the perpetrators that I was around in the Washington, D.C. MK Ultra swamp feared the most, is the strength of the human spirit and the infinite power of love, because they are a very low vibration, dark, negative energy force. They feed off a low vibration, dark, negative energy. That's why they want to dumb us down, align us with the AI, create division, fear, hatred, confusion, anything that keeps us at a low vibration, because they fear the strength of the human spirit. They can't touch it. That would be like darkness creeping in on light. It's too high of a vibration for them. So the only thing they can do is use mind control to dumb us down so that we don't think to go within. Without free thought, we have no free will. And without our God-given free will, we lose our soul expression. If we don't have soul expression, we lose our discernment of truth, our compassion for each other, and our ability to choose to go within and align with the divine, to live the love we are, to live our life's purpose. We lose all that, and they know it, and that ultimately is their goal. So the mind control agenda, MK Ultra mind control, is a spiritual warfare. And it's one that we've already won. They only have as much power as we give them or let them steal. We got the victory within us. We got to remember that. Remember who we are and why we're here. When we do that, it's game over. We shine our light so bright, we not only expose their dark secrets and what's going on in their darkness, but we can eradicate their darkness once and for all. And it all begins with that infinite power of love. So I mean, love is our saving grace. It's who we are. And it's so simple to access it. If I can live that love after all I endured in my life without bitterness, fear, and hatred and everything. No, I'm living the love I am, because I already know that's what they fear the most.
That's beautiful. Can I just say to that the fact that Mark said that to you, that you needed to heal before things progressed, tells me exactly the sort of man he was, and
Yes.
that is absolutely wonderful. And I just want to add as well that the fact that this trans agenda has got such a major foothold with children worldwide, especially in the United States, is because they are taught the opposite, pretty much, of loving themselves. They are taught racism. They are taught all these things. With social media plays a massive part on that, and this is why it's such a big problem.
It's also a depopulation agenda, because there's no human procreation going forward with that. So that's like the pedophile agenda to the next level on depopulation. We're being hit with depopulation from a lot of different directions. George Bush had said at Bohemian Grove, when he was talking with his friends and cohorts and all this there, that if they lost control over the minds of the population, that they would reduce our numbers to a more manageable size. And they had already decided by the mid-'80s they needed to reduce our numbers with the first AIDS genocide. And the AIDS vaccine was a mass genocide operation all the way back then. But it has advanced so much. But one of the main things they went for is the transgender movement and the depopulation agenda that way, because they do have people then that are in a state of confusion and self-hate and not living their who they're born to be. So it's such a division within the person themselves, and a division among us, and a depopulation all rolled into one.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Just quickly, that's very interesting you say that, because I was listening to Judy Mikovits earlier, and she was saying about the cancer, AIDS, and all that. This was their first push at this. What happened? Agenda 2030. This was their first attempt at it. That was about 1992, I think.
Absolutely. Agenda 2030 is when the 100-year plan of this New World Order, globalist agenda, Great Reset, whatever they change the name to and want to call it, it's a slave society agenda. And it's been going on. When you look at the history of it in Nazi Germany, and Agenda 2030 is supposed to be the end of the 100-year plan. And the 100-year plan is so that there's 3 generations absolutely conditioned to compliance, was the ultimate goal on that. And for all that they put into it, and all these years and efforts and expansion, again, they really can't relate to the strength of the human spirit and the infinite power of love. It's so far from who they are. They can't relate to it. They can't think like we do. We sure don't think like they do. But we've got the wisdom that outthinks them. So we've got the victory right here. But we've got a long way to go to undo the damage that they have done over these years. We got to break the genetic chain. We are remember who we are, why we're here, and realize this is an amazing time to be alive. We're all here for a big purpose. We got to get to live in it.
Cathy, one of the really important things that we haven't touched on yet, and it's in your book, and it really relates to what's going on now. All of this starts with the kids. And one of the things that was really key in your healing is one of the things that they've gone out of their way to make sure that the kids can't do nowadays. And that was in taking away the reading and writing of cursive.
Absolutely. It's such an important thing, and I'm really glad you brought it up, because we've got states now that are putting writing by hand back in the school system. You know, this message is getting out there. Mark had taught me at the beginning that the pen is mightier than the sword, and he told me to write out my memory as the memory began flashing on my mind screen. He said that the very act of moving a pen activates and requires using the logic critical analysis part of the brain. Typing doesn't do the same thing. Only writing by hand, it activates that part of the brain. So it takes emotionally incomprehensible repressed memory, shifts it over to logic where it's written out on paper and is consciously seen. And healing happens psychiatrically. The neuron pathways open up, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, everything all at once with this one simple little brain hack. But it's such an important part of analyzing information and critically thinking that they made sure to take that out of the school system right away and put in the computerization, because the keyboards don't do the same thing, and the information, especially history, was rewritten so that it was controlled through the computerization and harmonics and everything else. So we've got to get back to writing by hand in the school system, get rid of the devices, and have children learn how to think again. This is such an easy little tool. You know, the activism now of parents saying, hey, you're going to get writing back in the school system. Or if they're homeschooling, that's the first thing they do. They start teaching that again. It's such an important part in our own healing. And I encourage everyone everywhere to pick up a pen and paper, write out their fear, their trauma, their whatever's hindering them in their life, whether it's guilt or grief or anything negative, and then add a solution. And I spell it SOUL, add a solution, because that forces your brain to fire in new ways. Again, it lifts you out of that pit of negativity and gives you a clear view forward. It's like rising above the storm and allows you to see. So it opens more neuron pathways in the brain. Writing by hand is something that we've got to get back into our society in so many ways. And if someone is like, yeah, I'll get to that, whatever, just try one simple little thing. Write your grocery list instead of put it in a cell phone, and see, you probably won't have to look at it when you get to the store, because of the way it makes your mind work and allows for you to remember exactly, yes, what it is you're needing. Yeah, always. It's always right there. You know, it's such an important thing that we can get back into our own lives and get our brains working again, because we need to reclaim our brain space and get our brains firing. Now, you know, all of us do. All of humanity needs to reclaim that brain space.
So Kathy, we kind of like jumped a little bit into how Mark rescued you and Kelly, but would you mind going back a little bit to why he had to rescue you? And, you know, obviously everybody knows why, but how that started and how you got caught in the swamp.
Oh, absolutely. Well, my father had sold me into it, like you read in the little intro thing. My father had sold me into MK Ultra mind control, but in so many ways I'd already been born into it because of the incest. And then he was using me in child pornography. The child pornography was also blackmail ops that at my grandfather's Blue Masonic Lodge, where I was being trafficked to local politicians and law enforcement and everything else. So I went into CIA MK Ultra mind control at a very early age. It was around 1960. I was about 3 years old, and my father was caught sending child pornography of me through the U.S. mails. And the local politician, Gerald Ford, told him he could receive immunity from prosecution if he'd sell me into the CIA's MK Ultra mind control. My father did. He thought it was a great idea, and he received lucrative military contracts after that and became very wealthy after selling me into MK Ultra mind control. But we need to look at all the way back then. We're seeing how the courts have been manipulated to allow for the proliferation of pedophilia already. That was already being done. All they had to do was invoke the National Security Act, and then the children are enslaved while the perpetrator goes free. You know, my father was never prosecuted, and I was thrust into MK Ultra, and as soon as I was taken to various DARPA, NASA, and military installations for MK Ultra programming. My primary MK Ultra mind control programmer was Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino, founder of the Occult Temple of Set, the one who wrote the book Mind War, that is like the manuscript on how to mind control and enslave a nation and the world using trauma. Is absolutely horrid when we look at that. But that made me totally robotic. And my owner in MK Ultra, I met him at the Epstein Island of its time, Mackinac Island, Michigan. Senator Byrd became my owner when I was 13 years old and directed my activities, what blackmail ops I would be used in, what black budget operations I would be used in, who I would be prostituted to, and when. Senator Byrd determined all of that. And the tortures I experienced were extreme, many near-death experiences. In those near-death experiences, no matter what my body went through, my spirit was always in a safe, loving space. And because of that, you know, it's like that safe, loving space, that saving grace, is like a freeway for me. And, you know, people say, you must pray a lot. You know, it's like, no, I'll kind of like live in a constant state of that, you know, because I keep that freeway open since I know that space and I know how divinely protected we are. And I know that we're able to make it through whatever happens to us in life. Isn't who we are. Who we are is still divinely protected, just waiting to be freed. So, I had that aspect waiting, but I had no capacity for any free thought to utilize any of that. I could only do exactly what I was told to do. I was 100% robotic. And if I delivered messages to and from government leaders or drug lords or whoever else I was working for at that time, I delivered the messages verbatim, according to program, using the voice inflection of my programmers, you know, so that I was absolutely that robotic and couldn't think to save myself. I couldn't think to protect my own daughter who was born into MK Ultra. That was the most horrific thing, because even though I couldn't think to recognize any of that or think it through in any way, my natural maternal instinct, my love, was still there. And I did everything trying to protect my daughter. I thought, well, they told me that she would be protected if I would do so and so. And come to find out, she had been told the same thing. And so they used our love, you know, against us. But love is an absolute. My daughter and I are extremely close today, and have a great relationship. But it was absolutely horrific what was done to us both, what was done on that level. To me, that was the most torturous thing I ever endured, was not being able to protect my own daughter. That was the hardest thing for me to deal with in my healing process, that I hadn't been able to protect my child. And I think humanity really has a lot to go through on dealing with that, now that we know that this child sex trafficking harvesting operation has reached such huge proportions. You know, we all are going to have to deal with this. And I told Mark I couldn't deal with that. And he said that I wasn't responsible for what I was programmed to do under mind control. My abusers are. They need to be held accountable for that. But now that I am aware, I am responsible for all my actions going forward. So, you know, that's how I made sure, and I still make sure everything I do is out of love for humanity and absolutely true to soul and on purpose. We all need to do that and realize that mind control has that strong of an effect on us. I think everyone got a taste of it 2020 when mind control masked as a virus was unleashed on the global population, and the repetitive media narrative of mask up, social distance, get the injection, caused people to do things they wouldn't not otherwise have chose to do. And now they're having to face the consequence of having complied with those actions. And I'm seeing a lot of people have evolved with the knowledge that's our defense going forward, because they've tried it again and people aren't complying anymore. But they still have a lot to deal with because no one has been held accountable for those actions. And we need to be responsible for our actions going forward. But what I was forced to do under MK Ultra Mind Control is in my 1995 testimony for Congress, Transformation of America, and people can look into that further, because I'm so fortunate that Mark had seen what was going on in my daughters and my victimization, and rescued us from that high level of MK Ultra Mind Control in 1988. So that was a very pivotal moment. I didn't know that good people even existed in the world when he rescued us, and I was able to learn to trust him because my animals showed me the way back to trust, and they showed me that they could trust him, so I learned to trust him too.
Wow, that is some story. I wanted to make a comment. You mentioned Senator Byrd. Back in the 80s, when I was single and, became very involved in animal rights, meaning I became aware of factory farming and all this stuff, and I became a vegetarian, and I would write letters. Do you know who one of the most compassionate senators were, who were out there talking about sentient beings and their suffering? It was Senator Byrd. And I felt this, wow, somebody gets it, somebody understands, and they're standing up for the animals. And it amazes me, as I've since found out, right, about what he was really doing, the sheer lies.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds so like, oh, it's a lie. The sheer lies and the personas that these people put forth that are 100% opposite of who they are and what they're really doing.
Yeah, they just tell you what you want to hear, and they use NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, or political rhetoric to do it. And it's so important to look at their actions rather than their words and see what it is they're really doing. Because like Senator Byrd could quote the Constitution, like Satanists quote the Bible, twisting it to fit his agenda, but nevertheless looking like he was just standing for the Constitution, when in fact he was selling us all out to global control. You look back at his history with KKK and the slavery that he was doing then, and the brutal slavery that he imposed on people, selling us out to the global education. He was very much responsible for that aspect, getting into the school system to indoctrinate children with what to think rather than how to think. Senator Byrd had an office in the FBI building to establish the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children as a catch net operation for child trafficking networks, so that they could continue their funding mechanism within the system itself, and ultimately corrupted the whole CPS, Child Protective Services, as a result of that, turning it into the CPS pipeline that it is today. So, Senator Byrd has been real instrumental in selling us all out, and above all, our children. What he has done to the children is it's unconscionable. It's unthinkable. It's so horrendous, and yet he did it the whole time with his pompous attitude, staying in office for over 50 years, by being selected by the electronic voting machines that were rigged since their inception to place people like him in positions of power. He was in office all those years, making it look like he's some kind of a hero to us all, when in fact he sold us all out. So we look at actions, stop listening to the words, because these politicians are going to say whatever it is you want to hear, but what are they actually going to do is important.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And Stu, I don't know if you have a question, but I had another question.
I just got a quick statement, really.
Okay.
It's funny that, or not funny at all, really, that we find out in later life that one of Hillary Clinton's role models was Senator Byrd.
Right. Right.
Yeah. It says a lot, doesn't it?
It does. And they were real close in the child sex trafficking and child harvesting operations. They were together on the adrenochrome. Byrd was heavily involved in all of that aspect. Madeleine Albright, right there up there with him. We can't overlook her. She was head of the State Department, head of Organization of American States, and had an office in the Virgin Islands, St. Thomas, very much part of establishing Epstein Island back in the day, very much a part of the Clinton Foundation, child sex trafficking, the child harvesting that was going on in Haiti, that it probably is going on in Haiti. Those three were absolutely horrendous and tied right in with George Bush Sr. All of them very close. It didn't matter the political party. That's an illusion to divide the people. It has nothing to do with anything. The political parties, I'm sure we've all seen now, are both actively involved in this globalist agenda. And we've got to realize that and start understanding what these politicians are really all about, and learning how to discern their manipulation of the subconscious with neurolinguistic programming. That is the language of the subconscious that should be taught in school to everyone, so that we can level the playing field and all know exactly what's going on. Attorneys use it. It's how they manipulate jurors. They're very proud of that. And we need to, again, level that playing field, teach it to everyone, so that we can hear what they're actually saying and how we're being manipulated.
It's so crazy because, before I was awake politically, I was like, that came, over time, right? You start to understand that there are, these systems that are no good and we need to change them. But then you kind of have another awakening that says, well, who are the people, because I think this person's good and they say the right thing. I remember reading about Madeleine Albright. Like, she learned, according to this story I read, she learned Russian, during one of her pregnancies when she was, and it's like you get women to look up to you, or to look up to these people for like these things you could do. And then this awareness of who these, I don't even want to call them people, but these creatures are. I had another question, and I don't know, when you were explaining how your father sold you into this program, and of course the horrific criminal activity he was involved with, and then of course how he interacted with you, where was your mom? As a mom, as moms, we always feel we're the protectors, and where was your mom at this point? Was she controlled?
Well, the multi-generational aspect of my family, my father had been sexually and ritually abused. My mother was sexually abused and trafficked to my grandfather's Blue Masonic Lodge. She was around politicians like Ford, and manipulated by them. She had her own level of victimization. She was very, very cold and unkind person. But looking back on it, I have a deeper understanding, because while I was in Mackinac Island, Michigan, and being subjected to people like Byrd and the governor, George Romney, and Pierre Trudeau, people like that, my mother was subjected to Henry Kissinger and some of the others that were also present at those meetings. So my mother, I think, had her own problems to deal with. She had 7 children that that were raised in MK Ultra. She was very much led by the Jesuit community within the Catholic Church. Her brother, my uncle, was military intelligence and a Jesuit who was heavily involved in child pornography and blackmail operations, and actually took the blackmail videos and flew them to the Vatican vault. The Vatican blackmail vault is one of the biggest in the world, and is something that needs to be uncovered and understood. You know, we hear about these blackmail tapes, the Diddy tapes and all. You know, we need to check the Vatican. It's one of the main places. There are many others around the world, but that one I'm acutely aware of because my uncle flew those videos from around 1960, 1990 that I know of. And that's my mother's brother. You know, so we're looking at a whole multi-generational aspect that is either genetically inclined to be involved in it, or a level of victimization added to it. You know, that line tends to blur. But I understand in later years, my mother did leave my father and start to remember, because she had started to remember. So, you know, the multi-generational victimization, whatever level we've all been manipulated, is something, it's up to us to break that genetic chain and start thinking free and realize with some level of understanding what went on. You know, people said, well, did you forgive your abusers? And it's like, no, I'm not going to forgive. That's like condoning abuse. That's not, but then it's semantics, because it's a matter of understanding what level my own mother had gone through. I'm just not bitter. I don't have that kind of hatred or bitterness. Understanding gives, I think, a deeper, more valid form of forgiveness, because it's not just an emotional decision. It's an absolute.
Yeah. I think that's what a lot of people probably can't get their arms around, because if you come from a family that's not involved in that, of course, we have other issues that, you know, come with coming from a normal family. But if you don't come from that generational involvement in this, right, cult, MK Ultra, whatever you want to call it, you're just kind of having this opinion when you start to awaken, like, how could a mother let her child, you know, like, you think of it
Right.
like it's just,
Right.
he just woke up one day and he decided to sell, you know. And that's the thing I think we need to educate, because it's a system that has to be taken down. It's not
Yes.
just rogue people. Yeah, I'm sure those exist. I'm not, but in terms of the systemic nature of this, it's not like your dad just woke up one day and got involved with bad people and said, hey, you know, I'll make this deal. And your mom just stood there cooking in the kitchen, turning a blind eye. It's much deeper. So that's part of the education that people have to understand, why it's so important that it might be taking so long, because it's not like just arresting some evil doers. It's taking down systems that have been around for so long that need to be destroyed.
Exactly. And I've been saying that about the Epstein files, because people go, release the file. You know, it's like, why? So we can snap judge one person. We got a whole system to unravel here. And it's like the thread that can just unravel the whole tapestry of this globalist agenda when we start to understand on a deeper level. And I'm not saying these criminals should go free. I'm all for the death penalty for anybody who rapes and traffics a child. You know, so I'm not saying that they should go free like that, but that we do have to have a level of understanding on what in the world has been going on. And, you know, on that death penalty thing, is my ultimate hope that, because there's a consequence for actions, that those who have been conditioned to accept this and think that's okay, that it might be their lineage, it might be their bloodline, you know, to think that that's okay. That might be the thing that breaks their genetic chain, going, whoa, why is there such a consequence for this action? It's because it's causing a de-evolution of humanity, and it's undermining our whole spiritual aspect of living. So it's got to stop, and it has to be stopped. And if there's a harsh consequence, maybe it'll just wake some people up and get them thinking, like maybe I shouldn't be doing that, because as we got a long way to go to unravel this, and we're going to need to do it quickly for the children's sake. It's so important. They can't wait. They've had to wait far too long. I've waited a lifetime. Let's stop this. If my testimony hadn't been censored in 1995, how many children would be alive? How many children wouldn't have been trafficked and harvested? How it's mind blowing to think of that. So it's like so important that people wrap their mind around the reality now and be empowered with truth that makes us free, rather than be so overwhelmed by it that they're immobilized. We've got to have action. We got to have it now. And it begins within each and every one of us in our own mental and spiritual evolution. The whole world's going through it right now. We need to lead the way.
But what you say is almost, there's no way around it, because in 1995, how could it not be censored? Like, we're sitting here saying if it wasn't censored, how many children could have been saved? No, They couldn't have been at that time, because the system had to be attacked and taken down. Right. That's the horror of why for the next number of whatever decades that this continued. And that's where we are now. And people have to rise up. And I have so much faith in the younger generations, because like my daughter's 19 and, she thinks I'm crazy most of the time, but she thinks your people in your community are so angry. She has like that whole thing. But when I sat down with her the other day and I explained to her how there's righteous anger, because when you go down these rabbit holes and you're so frustrated about how to solve it, and you can, or it's not happening fast enough, you tend to sound like a lunatic who just says, kill them all, but I actually broached it. And, these kids are very aware, much more than we were, about pedophilia, about, that it's not just a weird guy, like this is a guy who that's a bad person, about, and when I talked to her about had this conversation with her, it was like, we connected, because I explained to her what it's kind of all about, and, I don't want to get too graphic, because we all awaken like at our choice sometimes to read and to understand. But I used some terms, and I think that's the good news, because I think these kids, they're so much more awakened just by coming in at a higher vibration. And that, if we can get through this awful where we are now, I think they're going to very much will be in good hands, like for them to carry this and live in a different way. But we're in it now. And as far as the guilt as a mom, obviously it's totally different, but there's so many moms out there that have guilt now about not knowing years ago not to vaccinate your children. We just were told, we were in fear, we were trying to do what was best. And you just have to, like you said, take it from this point on and just like forgive yourself for not knowing.
Yeah. And it's all love, when even, it's love for children that makes me say, that I would support a death penalty for people that rape an infant. I mean, what the heck? But it's not hate for them. It's love for the children. It's love for humanity. And when we look through eyes of love, sometimes there's some harsher consequences that have to happen. We haven't seen any consequences for actions for so long in this country now. We've got a long way to go to reestablish that moral integrity to our justice system and to our lives.
Yeah.
Well, going back to what you were just talking about, when you look and you think in reference to what you had said about moving forward, how much more, it couldn't have been done in the 90s, but, we're more aware now. If you just go back a couple of years and you take into consideration Epstein and P. Diddy, and you go back to the lovely and talented Amy Robach, who had the goods on Prince Andrew, and yet Disney, ABC, I know we can't go there. We can't go there because if we go there, we'll be denied access to the royal family, and God forbid we should lose that access. Put out something that's important. That went on for 3 years. How many kids? Now, there are plenty of times that in just doing my daily job without a reporter, that I ended up with exclusive stories that the assignment desk said, nah, not that important. And I called up the managing editor or the news director at either NBC or CBS and said, listen, these people aren't smart enough to know the difference between a good story and not a good story. And they took the story and got the exclusive on it. Okay, but when you're dealing with child trafficking, where do you not go morally and pass that story on to somebody else to do and get it out there? That in 3 years, who knows how many kids' lives you might have saved. And then when you look at Epstein and you look at P. Diddy, what in reality was that truly about? It wasn't just about the child trafficking. It was about the blackmail. It was about the blackmail that's gone on forever. And what is blackmail for? To control an outcome. Okay, and if you're controlling politicians, the people who make our laws and who control our lives, you're golden. So this stuff can go on and go on and go on, and nobody's got the power to stop it because they're all afraid. The biggest motivator ever in human history is fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're afraid the truth will come out. And this is the problem that we face. So we haven't moved forward. And I go back to what I said at the beginning of the show. We're not going to move forward until we, the people, stand up.
Yeah.
And make it move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mark, you don't know how many people, they weren't worried about the story with the Royals. You don't know how many people in that organization were participating in all of this stuff. So it was, a lot deeper and a lot more sinister than just, we might not get the story right. I mean, I know you're aware of that, but whether it was blackmail or not, these people were participating.
Yeah, I just want to say to that though, potentially we were obviously seeing the sort of tide turn about that you sort of like the good guys getting control of this. Otherwise, that clip of Amy Robach speaking would have never seen the light of day, would it? So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's her conscience.
Well, you've got people behind the scenes who won't stand for certain things. You have people who do it just because they have a vendetta against the company.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that's always boggled my mind is you work in a business in which you have cameras, you have microphones, you have recording facilities. What kind of a ditz do you have to be to know that the microphone is on you, to know that you're standing in front of the camera?
Yeah.
Or that could have been set up also.
Yeah.
I'm so excited that people like you were always right there, and I'm especially excited that that the MK Ultra hearings, coming back on that, because it's caused a lot of people around the world to start asking the right questions. It's got the attention of the whole global population, and it was the persistence of making those hearings heard that made the difference, because Representative Luna was going to do that on May 13th, and those hearings were canceled last minute in the for whatever reason. And that was when Tulsi Gabbard's office was raided. All the MK Ultra documents and the JFK documents by the CIA, who's obviously scared of what still is coming out because it is ongoing. It's not a past thing. It's not history. So with all that happening, there was a huge movement to get the information out anyway. How can we move forward? How can we get this information to come out? And June 30th, it came out anyway. And it's exciting that persistence actually brought that forward. And I think we've reached a time now where the people, when something is silenced, they know there's something big to it and they want to know the truth. So now we've got a demand for truth that's going on. It is driving the release of information. And it's an amazing time to see this turnaround. I trust that it will continue, that people will continue to look to alternative media, to look to this broadcast right here, instead of the mainstream media, and to continue to demand truth, because ultimately it's the voice of the people demanding it that's making it happen. When those hearings were canceled, the outrage that I saw, the reverberations of it were just a palpable wave of, that's not going to be silenced, and it's the same way I felt when the tornado slammed my home. I was so focused on what I was doing. It's like, no way I'm going to be silenced. This information's got to come out. It's like truth has a life of its own, and it's been seeking to emerge for a long time. And this is the time for it to come out. This is our time. It's what we've all been working for. And what an amazing time to be alive, to have voice in all of this and bring this forward. And look at the voice you have, Mark, with what you've done as a result of what they tried to squish back then. Man, you're on fire now. You're just not gonna stop until everybody understands the magnitude, the pervasiveness of child sex trafficking and what we can do to stop it. So I appreciate all of you so much for that, and everyone everywhere who is taking it upon themselves to make sure this truth is heard, because it is truth that makes us free.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to ask you a question. Now we all know the horrificness of adrenochrome, and everything about it. It's something that we've learned going down these rabbit holes, and it bared on our souls and stuff. But I just want to ask, because there's been this massive push sort of worldwide for kosher and halal slaughter going around, and we do a show called Red Pill in Renee. It's Elisa's cousin. I won't go into it too much, but he woke up during the Epstein files, and we've been doing a show every week.
May I interject? This was a man lovely man, giving, but in a bubble, very wealthy, very successful. And we would get into, he would say something, and then of course I'd be throwing information that was, truth or bombing. And at one point, our last conversation before he read the Epstein files was, "Oh, Elisa, is everyone a pedophile?" We were like having coffee. And I was like, "Renee, yes, they are, when what you're looking at." And so just to kind of just add that on to, to what Stu's saying. So we watched a person wake up.
Yeah, exactly. And we've been bringing him through it. But as we discussed earlier, that pretty much everyone is MK Ultra'd if they watch the TV, even though they don't know anything about it. This push for this slaughter, when I told Renee about it, he thought, didn't he, that these animals sort of got wrapped up in a blanket and were fed grapes and champagne until they passed away. It was that humane. When I actually told him about it, he was horrified how these animals are hung upside down, just slit from the neck and stuff. And this is almost adrenalized meat in these animals that are dying, that they are feeding to everyone. And it's almost like it's part of the agenda that they wanted everyone eating this adrenalized meat. And what do you think about that?
That's horrendous. I mean, these, like I said, they haven't been around them. They feed off of negativity and they feed off of fear, and that's their vibration. And they think that if they feed all of us that same vibration, that it will bring us down to their level. Ultimately, in many ways, it will and can. The whole structure on the adrenochrome is something that I was subject to in 1977 in the backwoods of Louisiana in a cult ritualized setting with CIA assassin serial killer Wayne Cox, who had a coven with Roger Clinton, Bill Clinton's half brother. And their point in their coven was to get the adrenalized blood, which Satanists were indulging in back in those days. And it became the precursor to adrenochrome. And that adrenalized blood was sold into what the CIA cocaine ops that Bill Clinton had. And it went directly through Hillary Clinton's child trafficking harvesting ops that she had, and her precursor to adrenochrome right there on the spot. So it came from satanic bloodlines. And it's something that I was subjected to repeatedly, and have many scars to show how often the adrenalized blood was taken from me, and especially in those early days. But that's something that's gone on a long time and is a basic staple in their diet, not ours. And we've got to realize that they're trying to condition us down to that low vibration level that they feed off of. We've got to stop it, realize that we share this planet with people who are not like us and do not like us, and that we have the strength, the victory, the capacity to stop them, to save and protect our children, and to reclaim our freedom going forward. It's so important that we do that now before they go any further with their adverse agenda.
Yeah.
And I think they've proven, if you hurt an animal, you're more likely to hurt a human and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's a really good sign, just as someone who's been involved in the animal advocacy, that our government, Trump, has signed the executive order for about, it being a felony to harm animals, because it's a strange thing, but I think people dissociate when they hear about these awful things to kids. You kind of can't absorb it, so you shut down. But animal, when you see that, it's awful, but it activates you a little bit. You know what I mean? So they're starting to get people to realize that we have to start being kind to living creatures. And then I think when the full extent of this awfulness comes out, people will have been, they'll be more open, or it'll be able to be digested a little more, so they can take action and they don't get immobilized with it. But I was thrilled about that, with the fighting and, harming them. And I personally am going to predict that the next step of all this is to end the factory farming. Not only because of the horrific nature of it and the lack of health and all that stuff, but because we are looking to move back to the farmers who did it with integrity and love for their animals and gave us food that was meant to nourish us, not make us part of some sick cult.
Exactly. And I'm so excited to hear you say that. And I wrote my latest book, it just released, is Align with the Divine. And it is about regrounding in nature. And it has a lot of animal stories in it and how animals take us back to our senses. I had found, and I mentioned briefly, the animals had showed me how to trust when Mark rescued us. Mark knew that people who abuse animals abuse children and vice versa. So when he came to rescue my daughter and me off the farm where we were being kept, he also rescued our cows and horses and guineas and chickens and dogs and cats, knowing that they too were being traumatized and that we were being traumatized by seeing that that harmed animals. So I had a deep connection with animals, being blasted into primitive parts of my brain without any free thought. I was highly telepathic, very sensitive to vibrational frequency, intuitive, having a lot of those kind of extrasensory capabilities. And I was telepathically attuned with my horse. I love my horse. And she would come up to me and take me anywhere I wanted to go on the farm. And no bridle, no saddle, no words, nothing. She'd just walk up, I'd climb on, and she'd take me where we needed to go, bring me back, whatever. And it was all just intercommunication like that. And if my handler was around, who was so abusive, she would run the other way, you know. So when Mark came to rescue us, my horse walked up to him and looked him in the eye and loaded herself on the horse trailer. That was the most amazing thing. To me, that miracle showed me that I could trust Mark because I was so telepathically attuned to that horse. All the animals connected with him, all our pets did. And then we saw his pets. My daughter and I saw his raccoons and his fox. I mean, he had all kinds of animals. Everything loved him. As soon as he'd walk in, they'd all run up to him and pat on him and love him, kiss him, hug him. You know, it was really sweet seeing all that. And they showed me the way back to trust. And it was such an integral part of my healing. So knowing that, you know, we've got this process finally started to protect the animals, it makes all the difference in the world. I had high hopes that we would move into this kind of protection when Joel Salatin of Polyface Farms was brought in to this administration and working to protect the livestock and the farm animals and everything else, working under Bobby Kennedy. So when I saw that happen, it was like hope, and like, here we are. It's just happening more and more because it's people who abuse animals like that have no respect for life.
Mm-mm.
No one's life. And this is going to be a big lesson back to us all. But additionally, the nutrition that comes from happy animals is vastly different than that tortured variety. So, you know, this is a step forward towards reclaiming our own viable, healthy nutrition. And above all, to show us the importance of treating our animals, wildlife, livestock, pets, all of them with respect.
Yeah. Well, it certainly, my goodness, we're almost at 2 hours. This feels like we were on here for 15 minutes, but I wanted to just tell you a recent thing that's happened. Last Friday, we were live with Renee on this Red Pilling Renee story. We're on, like, I think episode 14 or 15. And he was, you know, talking about the impact that his awakening has had. For instance, a client of his called him because his daughter, who lives with his divorced ex, had a fight and ran out, and they haven't been able to find her. And so this little conversation, we all, you know, were like, well, wait a minute, they haven't found her. It's been a number of days. So we kind of jumped on, and, you know, that the whole thing with this young girl whose name is Melania, ironically, from New Jersey, who left. We don't know a lot of details, but we just know she ended up in the Bronx in New York because she was caught on, like, a video camera outside a women's shelter, but we don't really know anything else. So we've gotten the ARC involved in this pursuit, if you will, and she's 14. There's a lot of holes that we just don't know. We don't have a sense of right now, but we do have a couple of photos that we could put up, right, Mark? I think you have those loaded. So that's the young girl. You know, you could see her description, 5'2", and we just have not heard anything yet. So we're just praying, because we don't even understand how a girl of 14 who ran out without her cell phone. So that's kind of strange to begin with. And ends up from New Jersey into, across the river into New York. But this was the last photo. I believe you could see on the timestamp, it was the 7th, which I think was last Tuesday, but actually because it's 12:45 at night, it would be Monday. So like Monday night into Tuesday morning. And we just haven't heard anything yet. So we've put it out on all our social media, and we're spreading the word, and we're just really, really hopeful, that maybe with the help of the ARC, this girl is found, and we just don't know the details. So just keep praying, and just want to make everybody aware and give them an update from last week on that. Stu, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just want to say it was really quite an emotional show, because we were just waffling on as usual about, when his awakening and what's been happening. And then he started telling us about 30 minutes. And then it was like, he said, I've got to call her now. You could see us sort of like processing it. He said, I've got to go. I've got to call the father now. And he went and called the father, and then he came back on, and then we were talking about Mark and Baz and Ark and everything like that. And we finished the show. It's normally a 2-hour show, but we just shut it down. About an hour and 7 minutes it was, I think. And we just got off and we cracked on. We spoke to Mark. Mark got Baz involved in everything. We've got a couple of institutions involved now. So it was, I know we talk about all these things, and sometimes you are a little bit further away from it, but while it was happening, while we were live and stuff, it was like cutting a bit more, wasn't it, Elisa? That we just had to get off the broadcast and get into action. So, everyone's sent us some love and questions. Have you had any news yet? So, yeah, we've got to manifest the positive for this one for sure, and send out the love and prayers.
Yeah,
and this is
100%.
what I do, because we, when I was still working, once, sometimes twice a week, we used to run these promos for missing children, 797 missing children. And, it would always start out, have you seen so-and-so? And they put the kid's picture up. But when we would record these things to air them, you'd be recording maybe 7 to 14 or 15 of these in a row. So you're not dealing with just a missing kid. This is a plague that's been going on for a long time, either runaways, or kidnaps, or trafficking, whatever it would happen to be. And you're talking going back, well, I think we've been doing these since the late 80s, early 90s. So this is nothing new, people. This is nothing new. And I go back again, only we can stop it.
Yeah. We also are really happy. We're going to be having our 3rd Awakening Summit. This is something that was done in New York. 2 events were done in New York, basically just started by a local New Yorker who's from Queens, lives on Long Island now. We became friends, and she's just sick and tired of what's going on with the children. So she started putting these events together with a lot of the podcasting community, and the truther community would come and speak. And, we would include geopolitics and things like that. But overall, the guiding mission was to build awareness. So Mark, we can't really announce too many details because we have a meeting today. But what I will say is we have our 3rd Awakening Summit, which is going to be in October, the weekend of the 16th to the 18th. I can't give any, we've had some changes, all amazing and good changes. But the main focus of this event is about the plight that is happening with the trafficked and exploited children. And we're so thrilled because Cathy, I know you're going to be part of this event among so many other esteemed people who are working so hard on behalf of the children. And that's kind of all I can say right now. So we'll hopefully within the next few days, we're going to give everybody even more information and outline a lot, the details of all the speakers that are part of this event. And, it's just going to be amazing because I don't want to say that the children were not at the forefront of the other organizations, but they had like a lot more stuff that we were talking about from the perspective of, geopolitics and the world and all that. So this is truly going to pinnacle. We'll have some geopolitical people there, but the whole driving force and what we're going to be putting out there about this event is really about this pandemic, of the children.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Please try to bear one thing in mind as you move forward with this. It's important to be aware of what's going on geopolitically. It's important to be awake and to understand the things that are going on. 99% of that is out of our control. This is not. Smokey, only you can prevent forest fires. Only we can stop child trafficking.
That's really the key. And we saw it in action because here's, a guy who called Renee because he's his lawyer. He didn't know who to turn to. And now we've got this really international awareness of just one child that hopefully will be returned, and whatever the issues were of why she left and all this stuff, will get figured out. But the key is to get her safe.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're going to wrap up in a minute. Cathy, would you like to just give us some final thoughts?
Oh, it's exciting being on this conversation with you all. The views shared. It's just so harmonious, so important for educating people about the children, but then hearing about the action you're doing. I mean, you're being that light, that path forward, showing other people what they can do. Mark Phillips, working the highest levels of intelligence, mind sciences, being a spook, could wear any hat, CIA, FBI, NSA, Secret Service, whatever. Made a difference right where he was and took action. That's what we all need to do, no matter where we are in life, whatever our position is. When we see the problem, it's time for action. Get involved in your local communities and get writing by hand back in the school system, restore justice to the system, get rid of those electronic voting machines. There's so many different ways that we all can get active. And ultimately, if we do it out of love for the children, there's no way that we can fail. If love for the children can unite the whole world, it can unite all of us. It'll unite all of humanity. In light of love, to protect the innocents, to protect the future generations. So it's such an important message, and it's the most important action we can possibly be taking. So I encourage everybody, arm yourself with truth, heal, reclaim your own free thought, free will first, and then start making a difference everywhere you go. It's an amazing time to be alive.
Exactly. And I say to everyone, it doesn't matter how big or small a part you play, just start using your voice. Just start sharing a few things. General Flynn says it all the time: local action equals national impact. And I just want to say, Cathy, this is, the first time we met properly today, but you are a beautiful, knowledgeable and inspirational lady and soul. And I feel very proud fighting alongside you in this, and you, Mark, and ELISA, and everyone else that's involved. And together we will win this. We just got to keep fighting on until we get to the end.
Yeah. And I want to just personally say, Cathy, I've been following your story and you for a number of years. It's an honor to be in your company, but more importantly, just your bravery. We just thank you. You have no idea the impact you've had on the world. You have no idea. And thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate that. It's an amazing time to have voice, when we're moving into solutions and being the change that we need to see.
Exactly. What a beautiful, beautiful chat. Thank you all for coming on. This has been an amazing show. Thank you everyone in the chat for the love and the support. And we play our little outro now. beautifully done by Mark. I would just want to say as well, all the donation links to the ARC and everything is in the description. It's always there on the Monday videos. Cathy, I'll put your website link in there as well. So anyone that would like to donate to Cathy, all the details are there. And enjoy the rest of your day, people.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Children are the center of our world, and we do our best to show them that we care. But evil is lurking everywhere to steal their youth, kill their souls, show them things that they should never know. We live in the craziest of times, you never know what's in another's mind. We keep them safe, protect from bad, but they just choose to make them sad and keep their evil rituals alive. Who saves the children? We do, we do. Who keeps them safe and warm and so secure? We do, we do. Who saves the children? We do, we do. And we'll fight to death to keep it safe for you. We'll fight for what's right with all of our might, and we won't leave one single child behind. They've been here since the dawn of time, and their actions take a twisted mind. But we won't stand no more. We'll track them down for sure and make sure that they are gone forevermore. Why can't you see the crimes committed on our kids by the powers that be? How long do we wait? How many must die? How many loving parents need to cry? Who saves the children? We do, we do. Who keeps them safe and warm and so secure? We do, we do, we do. We do, we do. Who saves the children? We do, we do. We'll fight to death to keep it safe for you. We'll fight for what's right with all of our might, and we won't leave one single child behind. Who keeps them safe and warm and so secure? We do, we do, we do, we do, we do. We do, we do. Who saves the children? We do, we do. And we'll fight to death to keep it safe for you. We'll fight for what's right with all of our might, and we won't leave one single child behind.